So you want to be successful in your rugby trial match. Now, my name's Hassan and I make videos on YouTube to help rugby players improve in their own game and also play at a high level. Now, I wanted to make this video today because one of my fellow teammates at university, he was actually telling me about how he watched my previous video about how to be successful in a county or academy rugby trial, and he said he found that video really useful, and it actually came so useful that he got selected to be put forward to a trial game where if he's successful in that game, he'll get selected for his representative side. So I thought, why not take the opportunity to make this video today to help anyone who's in a similar position to my teammate who may have an upcoming trial game which they're trying to prepare for. So with that being said, I have a few key pointers I want to share with you guys today in this video, and hopefully you'll be able to take away something which will actually, be very useful for yourself and help you be more aware of what you should be doing when it comes to playing in this trial match. So the first thing I've got written down is that you want to be loud. Now, a lot of players, me including myself, it was my first trial game as such to play for a divisional side. Now, I found myself personally being rather quiet, a bit more than I usually tend to be on the field, which didn't really help my own situation getting selected. Now, this is quite normal for a lot of players, to be quiet because, you're nervous and, you're very anxious in terms of how you're going to perform on the day. But I think it's really, really important that you can be as loud as you possibly can, because you've got to remember that the coaches and selectors are the ones who are, viewing your performance and analysing you. So you want to be seen by them. So if you can use your voice to your advantage, being nice and loud, it's going to make you stand out, and hopefully the coaches will give you a bit more attention and hopefully you'll be able to recognise your skills just based off your loud voice and, dragging attention to yourself on the field. I think it's really good as well because it gives the impression to the coaches or selectors that you can also be a leader through your voice. If you're constantly, communicating really well on the field, it's going to give a really good impression to those selectors on the sidelines of the pitch. So try your best, guys, to be loud, be confident, and just make sure you're communicating as much as you can. That's my first tip for you guys, and I think it's really important that you're consistent with your communication and you're being loud from the start all the way till the final whistle. The next thing I have written down is to make sure that you're never static. You're never walking, you're never showing that you're being lazy. You want to be as active as you can, because you're not only being assessed when you have the ball in your hands, you're also being assessed when you're not on the ball, when you're in defense, you're in a defensive line, or if you're attacking, setting up the next attacking phase. You want to be active, you want to show that you're proactive in terms of how you're playing, how you think. And if you're walking, it's not going to give a great impression to those coaches. If you're able to be constantly moving, looking to try and read the game one step ahead and actually show that you're really engaged with what's going on, it's going to be a lot better for yourself in terms of actually playing better, but also the coaches are going to recognize this and understand that you're not lazy, you're really keen to get involved, and they're the type of players that they're ultimately looking to select. Next, I've got a really core fundamental idea, and that's executing the basics well. Now, by this, I'm basically talking about all the boring stuff, being able to pass effectively, tackle effectively, and, really execute those simple things to the highest standard, because in any team, any successful team, that's what all the players are able to do. And if you want to be selected for this, academy or this county that you're looking to, be a part of and represent, you need to be able to do these skills. That is like the core of your apple. That's the core of your game, and everything else revolves around that. So you want to make sure, in terms of passing, you're able to, do a nice simple tip, short range passing. You don't want to be doing these, extravagant, long range passes, or some fancy behind the back kind of passes, or some rash offloads. You don't need to be doing that. You need to firstly look to make short, simple, effective passes, and then as the game goes on, you can be a bit more expansive depending on the game situation and how it's going for you. And then just make sure you're being consistent with it as well. You can't be you can't make one effective pass and then look to do something rash next. You've got to be consistent with it throughout the whole game. The next thing I've got is you need to be able to show your selling points. Now, this is something which is very much down to your own individual position. You know, if you're a prop, you want to be really showing your abilities within the scrum. If you're a fly half, you want to show that you're really confident with, you know, your kicking skills and with your boot. And then, for example, if you're a fullback, you want to show that you're confident under the high ball and you're able to catch the ball effectively. It's all very much, you know, down to the position you play on the field. Now, I don't want to stress this too much, but this is probably the most important thing in terms of what the coaches are looking for, because it's going to be, you know, obviously the most realistic thing you're going to be doing when you're playing an actual game, or, you know, you're within a training environment as well. You know, when you split off to do your specific stuff within training, you know, the forwards are going to split off to do line outs and scrums. The backs are going to be looking to do attacking moves, and, you know, there's going to be different roles for different players. So you really want to make sure that you're selling yourself well, so that, you know, if there's forwards coaches or backs coaches, they can really pay attention to, you know, the skills that make you the player you are, and, you know, your unique points that make you stand out from the rest of the crowd. Because you got to remember as well that there's going to be other players at this trial game who, you know, potentially play the same position as you, or, you know, they're fighting for a place on this team. So you really want to give yourself the best chance of getting selected by being able to have a unique selling point which the coaches can look at and be amazed by. And then the final thing I have wrote down, now this is something that my personal university coach tells me and my fellow teammates all the time, and that's to have a mentality of always thinking about the next job. Now, what does this mean? This is basically saying that you should always be thinking about what's happening next in terms of the rugby game. You can't be thinking about a mistake you just made, because that's only going to affect the next decision you make. You need to be constantly scanning the pitch, understanding what's happening, communicating with your teammates so they're all on the same page, and, you know, you can constantly react to what's going to happen next. Because rugby is all about, you know, phases. It's a game, you know, fully wound through with loads of phases, different things happening, and you got to be able to just move on from the last thing that's happened. If you scored a try, that's great, but, you know, you still got to go on and finish the game. So, you know, you got to keep working hard, keep telling yourself that the game's not over until the ref blows the final whistle, and you got to constantly look to get involved, look to execute those core skills that I mentioned before, and you've also got to look to, you know, be effective as part of a team. Because you got to remember, guys, this isn't an individual sport, it's a team sport where, you know, you've got a specific role which adds to the value of the team. So if you're able to, you know, have that mentality of always thinking about what's next, it's going to make you a lot more effective during this trial game, and hopefully the coaches will recognize this, and, you know, it will give yourself a much more stronger chance of getting selected. Now, that is all the things I have written down in this video. I hope you found something useful from this, and hopefully, if, you know, you do have a trial game coming up really soon, you know, you're going to be as successful as possible, and I wish you all the best of luck. And with that being said, guys, I just want to appreciate you for watching this video and supporting the channel. If you found it useful, please leave it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments if there's anything else that you think I missed off. And with that being said, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.